sponsor, who you may be familiar with. That's the Saugatuck-Douglas Antiques Market. They're the folks who have the antique market once a month on Saturday morning in Bury Field, and they've sponsored the whole Tuesday Talk series for the summer, so we thank them. We also have John Thomas, a Douglas native and now a resident of Arizona, who has just joined us this morning. He's in attendance today, so if we could give everyone a round of applause, sponsoring a program is a great way to show support for the various programs that we do here, the mission of the History Center, which is to preserve local history and inspire learning to improve and inform the community, and sponsorship is just a great way to show support for that. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce, well, it's me. I guess I'll just stay here. So my name is Nathan Nietering. I'm the Executive Director of the Saugatuck-Douglas History Center. I'm pleased to be as the Executive Director, but it's also my privilege, because my background is in history, to be able to present one program a year to an audience in the community. I really look forward to this opportunity. I did one last summer. This is my opportunity for this summer. I'm already cooking up ideas for next year. So you may be aware that the building that you're sitting in is 150 years old this year. This is the old schoolhouse. It's 150 years old. It was built in 1866, and the first students were here in 1867. And we are celebrating this important sesquicentennial anniversary. And so one of the themes of our programming throughout the year is to try to marry programs on similar topics to important events going on in the community, important exhibits that we're having in our facilities, and that sort of thing. So because we're celebrating the old schoolhouse, it only seemed right to do a program about schools and school history in this area. Last year, if you remember, we did one specifically about this building. We also debuted a brand new exhibit last summer about the history of this building, which is long and varied. So this program builds on that. This is a program about, it will go in a little bit of detail about this building, but it's more about the other local schoolhouses in the Saugatuck-Douglas area, from one room to present. So that is what we will do today. I should start with an important caveat, which is, this is the elementary school that I went to. I grew up over in Dearborn by Detroit. I was pleased to go to Charles A. Lindbergh Elementary School, home of the Flyers. Yes, thank you. It was built in 1926. It's a beautiful historic school building. They recently put a new slate roof on, which you might be very surprised. You might think that's an exorbitant expense. Apparently the slate roof that had been on the front of the building, I'm not sure if it was the original or the second one, but having been built in 1926, that's a pretty long lifespan, so a good return on investment. It has wonderful terrazzo floors, just sort of glazed crushed stone on the floor. As a little kid, when you're a lot closer to the ground, that was something I noticed. I wasn't even interested in architecture at the time, but I just remember these fabulous shiny terrazzo floors. So I say all that only to lead up to the fact that I'm so pleased to be here in the community, but this is not where I grew up. You may hear things that are new to you. You may say, why didn't he mention that detail? I might say something that's totally wrong. I've been doing a lot of research. There are some historical documents that seem to refute one another. So I will do my best. And of course, we're not going to go into every last detail. There is a lot of information about local schoolhouses out there. If you really take the time to synthesize everything, and all the articles and primary sources and everything, it's certainly more than I could give in the program today. So we're going to touch on a few things and hopefully inspire some of you to go out and continue to be inspired by our wonderful schoolhouses. So what I will say, though, is that this is my one-room schoolhouse experience. This is the Miller School. It's at Greenfield Village, which is right in Dearborn. And of course, when you grow up in Dearborn, you go to Greenfield Village about 25 times a year, it feels like. This is the one-room schoolhouse. I should take that back. This is a replica of the one-room schoolhouse that Henry Ford attended, not in the first couple years of grade school, but sort of in the primary and intermediate time. And it's at Greenfield Village, and in the first grade, in Miss Sanson's class, I went on a school field trip, and we had a one-room school experience with the little slate boards and the desks and the kid who had to wear the dunce cap and all that stuff. So even though I did not go to a one-room schoolhouse, I had a little slice of the one-room schoolhouse experience here. We're going to talk real quick about education in Michigan. And it's really fascinating because how education started in Michigan goes all the way back before Michigan was a state. Before it was a territory, it goes back to the Land Ordinance of 1785. So not many years after the conclusion of the Revolutionary War. And this is really important because the Land Ordinance of 1785 established a mechanism for funding public education in the new territories going west from the colonies. And it established a survey. They had to survey all of these new lands. The Michigan survey, a preliminary one was done in the late 1700s, and then a second survey was done more detailed in the 18 teens, more or less. And so the whole state was surveyed by township and range. That was the sort of measuring system that went across the state. And of course, you're all probably familiar with townships. These were sort of the survey results of the statewide survey. So there's a representation of a perfectly square township, of which not everyone is, but they are all subdivided into 36 even districts. Each is a square mile, so a township is 6 miles on each side, or 36 miles square, without getting too detailed. They are numbered in a somewhat sequential sequence, but this is all important because when land grants were being given out, as states were being settled, Michigan and surrounding states, there was a specific part of the Land Ordinance of 1785 that said, Section 16 of each township shall be reserved for the maintenance of public schools. And many schools were actually located in Section 16. You can see where it is right here. It's almost in the middle of the township. So if there were no villages or communities otherwise in that township, a lot of times the first school building was in Section 16 because it was right in the middle. Another way that this was used was maybe the community was actually down here in the little corner. They would sell the land in Section 16, and the proceeds from the land sale would then go to benefit the school if it was in another section. So you'll see why this might be important in a minute. But this is Allegheny County, and you can see all the townships. And so each one of those townships has a Section 16, and that section was either where the school was located or where the sale of the land went to fund public education. So that was, even before Michigan was a state, we were already thinking proactively about education and that it's important. This is Douglas's first one-room school. And then actually I changed my notes, and Jim over here will correct me because Douglas actually wasn't a community in 1859 when this building was built, more or less. At that time it was still Dutcherville and Dudleyville, Center Street divided the two. The communities were not unified until 1870. But this was the first school, well, or the earliest known existing school in the community. You can still visit this building.
Can I make a comment on that one?
Yes.
My family owns that property.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so pleased that you're here. I assume there's more than one room on the inside now?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. This building is right up the street, literally across the street from the post office. And I have a couple of notes. It went into service as a school in about 1859. It continued in that as an active school until this building was built a few years later. At one point, there were 65 students with a single teacher in a single room. So there's probably about 65 of you in this room today. So remember how echoey it was, like first thing when you all got here? That's probably kind of what it was like trying to manage things in that classroom. So by all means, without asking too many people to walk in front of your property, go walk in front of this property. There's a very nice sidewalk right in front. This is a map. They did let me see here. You can read the tiny little writing. The School Inspector's Report in 1875 did a survey of school buildings across Michigan. And so this is the Saugatuck Township map of school districts. As more and more people settled in rural Michigan, there were more little schoolhouses built. Too many students for just one in the center of a township or a section, perhaps. And so in 1875, all the little red dots are where local schoolhouses were. And you see they're kind of scattered throughout the farmland, down south and east. This is important, this one right here, that instead of just SH for schoolhouse, that says USH. And that stands for Union Schoolhouse, which is this building that you're sitting in right now, which was built in 1866. Saugatuck also has a USH. That was the Saugatuck Union School, which we'll talk about in just a second. It's difficult to see, even up close on this map, but Douglas is section 16. Right here, this is section 16. So I don't know that the first school in the township was in Douglas, but it makes sense that there would be one here, even regardless of the fact that the community was building up around it. So this is a fantastic resource, and there are other, you can find other townships in searching around online as well. This building may look familiar to you. You are here right now. So this is one of the earliest pictures of the Douglas Union School. We think it's around the 1915 time period. Strangely enough, there are not a lot of photos, old photos of the old schoolhouse. And in many cases, that seems to be the case. And it was kind of a mystery when we were putting this exhibit together that there weren't more photos of a building that was so kind of important in the community. But kind of thinking about it, we kind of decided that, well, education was routine at that point. It was an important building, but it was every day, right? Students went to school every single day, and so it was not necessarily something with significant events or significant experiences or something other than a lot of learning, which was kind of every day. So there are not a lot of photos of the old schoolhouse, but this is one of the better ones, certainly. One of the interesting things, and by the way, this is not this building, but when it was originally designed, there were separate stairways to the second floor for boys and girls. And the story that I heard was that when you were perhaps all of the little girls were wearing skirts and dresses, and they were going up and down the stairs, maybe you want a boy immediately behind them, something of that nature. But anyway, this is a historic schoolhouse. It's a B&B actually that I inadvertently, unknowingly made a reservation for and spent the night in the Berkshire Mountains in, I think it's in Lee, Massachusetts. And it's a former schoolhouse, 1880s I think, that's been converted into a B&B, and they still have this sort of split stairway with the boys and the girls side. So this was just a really good illustration when I walked out the door of my room in the morning and saw this staring me right in the face, so it was pretty cool. We actually have some representative floor plans of what the old schoolhouse, how it was set up when it was a school, a functioning school, which, by the way, was from 1866 until 1957. There is an exhibit that is normally in this room. If you have never seen it before, go have some lunch after the program and then come back because the building will be open. And it chronicles the 150-year history of this building. And there are some floor plans that will be out that you can examine in detail. The way this was sort of combined was this left half is one classroom, and it's sort of representative of how it would have been in the mid to late 1800s, the floor plan. So desks all sort of grouped together. The chalkboards are on the interior wall here, so the wall that would be behind you. The reason for that was no electricity in 1867, right? So the chalkboards had to be opposite from the windows so everybody could see what was on the board. This room over here on the right-hand side is set up more in the style that would have been in the mid-1950s, sort of right before the school ended up moving over to Randolph Street. So the desks are arranged differently. Now the blackboards are over between the windows, basically right where these TV monitors are. Of course, there was electricity, there was plumbing in the building at that time. So it's really fascinating, and we have these are big poster panels that you can get up close and look at a lot of the details, which is really fascinating. Here's a few old teachers, looking good right in front of the building here, 1937 and 38. There were 4 classrooms in this building, so there would have been a teacher in each one, and often one of the teachers was also designated as the principal, although sometimes there was an additional person who was the principal as well. We do have some photos of teachers, class photos of students. They're on the back wall right here, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the folks from this building, because you are welcome to peruse sort of those panels after the conclusion of the program. But this is just one representative example. This was a class from 1943, standing right on the front steps in front of this building, which was a popular place for class photos to be taken. And it's great for us because we get to look and see sort of what all that detail was around the front door, what the windows looked like and everything, which has been helpful when we had to paint or do wood restoration.
What grade levels did this go? Because I don't see any little kids. Or is this just one class?
This is probably just one class. They look like they're maybe 6th, 7th grade, something like that.
Did it go K through
Originally, this building was first grade through 12th grade. And they would group the students, like grades 1, 2, 3 together, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all in individual rooms. And really, when the Union Schoolhouse was built in 1866, it consolidated several of these one-room schoolhouses, or at least gave the children the opportunity to come into a place where they could be taught in grades, which was a new phenomenon in education in the mid-1800s. It's a one-room schoolhouse. You might receive a different lesson if you were like, in what would become 7th or 8th grade versus if you were only a 5 or 6-year-old, but it was all sort of happening in the same place. And now, with separate classrooms, you were able to divide that up a little bit. This building closed in 1957. These photos are from 1962. It kind of became a resale shop in the first few years after it was a school. And then this building was converted into apartments. And it looked something like this for about 40 some odd years. Nancy Budd and her family managed the apartments. Each classroom was converted into one rental unit. So where you're sitting right now is basically the size of one classroom. It was subdivided with like living room, bedroom, bath, kitchen, something like that. And each of the units in the 4 classrooms were pretty symmetrical in that way. And here's what it looks like today. About 10 years ago, this organization raised a very large sum of money to both acquire the property, restore the exterior, and then rebuild the interior for our modern 21st century uses. We think it's a jewel on Center Street. I hope you will agree. We're celebrating the 150th year. The building was just painted this spring, so it looks really good. I think. I hope you will agree. And it adds a lot to the character here of downtown Douglas. What ended up happening was Douglas needed a new elementary school. This building was not big enough. It was certainly not modern enough. There was no gymnasium. There was no auditorium. Kids ate their lunch at their desks. This is cut up from the commercial record, May 24th, 1957. This is the artist's rendering of what the new school building on Randolph Street would look like. It still had 4 classrooms, but they were bigger. They could accommodate more students. But really important was this room over here, which was a multi-purpose room, which became, part auditorium, part gymnasium, part place for a stage, and sort of a flexible space that this building lacked. Let me check my notes here to make sure I'm not missing anything. This is what it looked like when it was built. 4 classrooms and a connecting hallway in the multi-purpose room over on the Randolph Street site. Cost $90,000 when it was built. It actually won a Design Excellence Award from the Association of School Administrators because they paid a lot of attention to lighting and natural light and the surfaces that were used on the floors and the walls and the types of chalkboards. Apparently it was, especially for a small town, a fairly progressively designed school in the mid to late 1950s.
Who was the architect for that?
It said in the previous.
Did it say it? Yeah, thank you, because I know I read it someplace. It says H.E. Bester and Associates. Yep, thank you. I read it someplace. It wasn't long before there were additions that were put on. In 1963, Douglas and Saugatuck unified their school district. And so what ended up happening was all of the elementary age kids went to the brand new Douglas Elementary School, which then they added on to in 1964 with more classrooms. And then all of the junior high and high school kids went over to the Saugatuck side to their big school building up on the hill above Allegan Street. And so this is what it looked like around 1964 after the first edition. You can see the bell over here. That's the bell that we just rang. Right? And when the school classes moved to the new building, they took the bell out of the belfry of this building and moved it over to the new building as sort of a continuation of the education of students in Douglas. And it was on that sort of brick pedestal for a while, and then it was put on something lower during a subsequent renovation of the building. In 2008, when this building was being renovated, there was a vote taken among all the students in Douglas Elementary about should they return the bell to its original home, which is in the schoolhouse, and they apparently overwhelmingly voted yes. So it was removed from its little pedestal, put on a special pickup truck, trucked over here, there was a parade, and then later the bell was raised up into the belfry, and now that's the one we ring today. So it's a great story. Here's a class photo. This is 3rd grade, 1959 and 60, in the new elementary school. Anybody recognize any familiar faces? There's somebody in Cub Scout uniform, lots of good plaids.
No, Sue Thomas is in the second row.
I have to find the original copy of this and have somebody write all the names on it for me so that we can identify who all these people are.
More over the dark there.
Here's another one. Notice, this is interesting, we call it Saugatuck Elementary School in Douglas, Michigan. I'm not sure, I don't know the background of that. But this is the fourth grade, 63, 64. Now we're getting to maybe like more yearbook style photographs here. Good hairstyles and things. Let's see. Okay, and so this will look familiar to you today. I think that there's been a few different additions added onto the building, right, along the way. It's much larger than just 4 simple classrooms with a multi-purpose room, but this is it's Douglas Elementary, and what's the name of it? Over
367.
Okay, all right. So that's pretty good. Yeah, that's great. And it's a very highly
That's
ranked
1 through 5.
school.
That's pre-K through 5. Pre-K through
Are they all Saugatuck and Douglas, or do we import?
About a third are school choice, and 2/3 are Saugatuck.
This is good. I didn't know that. So now we're going to travel a little bit. We're going to go across the river, far away, over to the Saugatuck side. This is the Pine Tree School, which is still there. Built in 1855, so it's one of the oldest buildings in Saugatuck. It's on Mary Street, and this building was used until the Saugatuck Union School was built, which was also in 1866, more or less. So I think this is a VRBO rental now, so you can go and rent this if you really wanted to. But it's been a wonderfully preserved little schoolhouse building. Also in Saugatuck was the Ward School, which was originally, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, it was out further in the township. On Dugout Road, I think, somewhere out that way, and then it was actually moved. It was wooden construction, so they jacked it up and they moved it to somewhere north of town, right? Does that sound correct?
I think maybe up on the hill.
Oh, okay, all right. Perfect. North-ish, east-ish. Yeah, exactly, right? So, but one thing that I wanted to highlight is this sort of typifies your quintessential one-room schoolhouse, right? A lot of times they have 3 windows on the side, again, all built before electricity, so you needed a lot of natural light in order to be able to see. Typically had the bell, right? So you ring it at the beginning of the day, lunchtime, and at the end of the day. A lot of them developed various little vestibules on the front for kids to put their coats and their boots and every other, their sleds in the winter, every other thing that came with going to school back in the 1800s. Probably no one knows anybody in this one. This is in 1890. The sign that she's holding says Ward School Pupils 18, with the year 1890. Ward School was actually a name for specific types of schools. It wasn't necessarily just specific to this. Ward schools were built often for early learning primary children. A lot of times they were built as neighborhood schools. Even in larger communities, you would have a ward school in a specific neighborhood. Or these were helpful, maybe in Saugatuck's case, when the Union School was built, a lot of students went there, but at some point the population grew. Now there were even more students, especially at the younger ages, and so having a ward school sort of provided additional classroom space, which I think is how the one here was used because it wasn't in operation into the early 1900s in Saugatuck. So this is the Saugatuck Union School. Not many photos of this building seem to exist. It was similar in architectural style to this Union School that you're sitting in, but it was larger. Saugatuck was a larger community. I don't know how many classrooms it had exactly. There is a bell tower right up in the middle. You can just sort of see the roof sticking up the top there. And this is some sort of class photo. There's a lot of people. They don't all look like children, so I don't know. But on the back of this scan, is the note that says, the old building as I left it in the late 70s, meaning 1870s. And then someone kind of built in 1866.
Where is that located?
That was located at the top of Allegan Hill at the cross street, which is Francis, is that the cross street name? Elizabeth, I think, one of those
Oh, that's
lovely
where
ladies.
the high school is.
Right up at the top of the hill. And I will illustrate that in a moment in a different picture. You'll get a good concept for where that building was. But basically what happened to the first Saugatuck Union School was it burned to the ground. Wood building, dang it. Actually, there was a story that I read that it was during a lightning storm. And lightning hit it. It was probably the tallest building in town, being way up on the hill, and it just all burned down overnight. So that was in 1896, and in 1897, they approved the money to build this new school building, brick and stone construction. Little larger, more modern design for the late 1800s. They actually made several images into postcards. I think the community was pretty proud of the new school building. This is one of those postcards, sort of showing the wide landscape that was available at the top of the hill at the time. This is really interesting. We're going to take a minute and look at this. And how many time? We're doing good. Okay, this is the front cover of Saugatuck Union School's booklet that was created to highlight the curriculum and the expectations of pupils, teachers, the principal, and the janitor. Very important. And so, this building looks almost brand new. I think this document would have been created in the very early 1900s, 1901, 02, something like that. The text on the bottom, if you can't read it, says, "The school building is well lighted, heated with both hot air and steam, has the best of ventilation, and is furnished with single desks and will seat 300 students." So, and at the time, this building, besides the Ward School, would have been first grade all the way through high school. Let's see. So we're going to look at a couple specific pages. These were all scanned. They're in our archive. We have the full set. It's 12 pages in total. The thing I wanted to point out on this page is tuition for non-resident pupils. Right here, sort of in the middle. Fall term, $4.50. Winter term, $4.50. Spring term, $3. Spring term was always shorter because they had to get back out, go plant those fields, tend to the farm. And typically, non-resident pupils were often coming from the countryside. Right? They were coming from Lake Town Township, Saugatuck Township. By then, early 1900s, roads were getting a little better. A lot of students would, they'd join up with the kids down the lane, right? And they'd all come in on a wagon together, something like that. So this also lists the staff. It looks like a principal, grammar, intermediate, primary, and a teacher at the Ward School as well. So this is one page that outlines the course subjects for high school students. You got English, arithmetic, grammar, let's see, composition, American classics, and English classics. Rhetoric, general history, geography, also Bantain. Does anybody know what that is? I'm sorry. Yeah, Bantain. Is that familiar? I looked it up. I'm sorry? Bantain? Yeah, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Who was a French philosopher who was in vogue at the time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of research, but I came on that word and I said, what the heck is this? So I don't really know what the substance would have been of those classes, but he was a theologian and a philosopher, and he was French. So apparently that was very important in 11th grade. Also, there's astronomy, and yeah, so lots of interesting course subjects at that time.
Reviews 3.
Reviews 3, maybe that's if you're a remedial student, you have to do it 3 times. I don't know what that is. Actually, I have no idea what that is. I should try to do some research into that as well. So these are rules and regulations. That goes on for 4 pages. For principals, teachers, pupils, and the janitor. And this is from the teacher's page. I'm going to read number 8, and I have to come over here in order to see it well enough. So it says, teachers are expected to train their pupils in the habits of neatness, order, obedience, and politeness, to tolerate no profanity, vulgarity, or cruelty, to inculcate the virtues of truthfulness, honesty, and kindness, correcting all coarse and ungrammatical language and unbecoming attitudes, and in every way in their power to fit them to perform in due time the duties and responsibilities of men and women.
All right.
Someone needs to go back and do review 3 of English, because that's a very terrible amount of sentence. So, and it goes up to 28 on this page, so these are for teachers here. Let's see, 29, because this is the following page. The other one I wanted to read, this is now for pupils, duties of the pupils, number 14, which says, before entering the building, pupils shall carefully clean their shoes, and on entering the building shall place their extra wraps in the allotted places and pass quietly to their rooms. In no case shall pupils linger in the halls or conduct themselves rudely in any part of the building or school premises. They shall not enter other rooms other than their own without the permission of teachers. So I'm assuming that's how it is at Douglas Elementary. Everybody walks very straight to their class, no talking. So this was fascinating to read through. There's a lot of other interesting things. It's really
Excuse me, were there any rules that had to do with behavior outside of school? I'm thinking of for teachers. Because I've seen that in some states.
Yes, it wasn't as detailed as other places where I've read it, but they are supposed to not do anything unbecoming in the community. They must hold themselves to the highest standards everywhere, all the time, no exceptions, or they would fire you. They would let you go and they would find another teacher. What's that?
18.
Number 18, any damage done in violation of this rule shall be made good in repairs or money by the violator, or his right to his seat in the school shall be forfeited, and he shall be subject to expulsion. So, no graffiti, no marking things up, none of that. But it's interesting that they say that they would accept repairs in lieu of money, right? So back in the time where a lot of people were much more handy, I suppose if Dad knew how to fix that chair that you broke, expectation. So this picture, this will give some context to where the Saugatuck School building was. This is Culver Street, looking east, straight east. Let me see, this building is still here, right? This is where, what's it called, the dog supply store is, that I'm forgetting the name.
Village, this was the Village Farm.
Yes, which is right here, that's this concrete block building. So we're looking down the street towards the Saugatuck Center for the Arts, and up here, this is the school building, up on the hill right off of Valley Street. So as you were driving down Culver, heading for Douglas, right, straight ahead of you, up on the hill, before there were so many trees, that's where the school was. This is a great photo, by the way. I love this picture. So that school, glorious brick and stone Saugatuck School of 1897, caught fire in 1950. No cause was noted. I should mention that in 1927 there was an addition that was put on. It had extra classrooms, it had some more multi-purpose space, and there was a specialized chemistry room and a library in that addition. And the fire only really damaged the oldest part of the building, the 1897 portion, which is what you see here. So what they did was they hurried up, they got some money together, and in 1951 they built a new wing of the building on top of where the old building was that was bigger. This addition cost $190,000, just for people keeping track of those things. It added an additional 4 new classrooms. Now they had their own gym and auditorium together, and so that's sort of what the building looked like. Apparently there was a lot of angst in the community because they had to cut down a lot of trees when they were building this, not just for the new building, but they also wanted to expand the playground area and different things, and there was a lot of contention about that.
What grades went to that school?
At this point, this was still first or kindergarten through 12th, all the way through was in the same building, and by that point the Ward School was closed, so everybody was going here.
But wait, wasn't the elementary school start?
But the districts hadn't unified yet.
Oh.
Yes. So actually, Douglas high school students came to Saugatuck at this point. Douglas Community School paid tuition money to Saugatuck for the high school students to go here, but the elementary school, elementary students were first in this building until '57, and then they moved to the new building. What's that? Yes, or they could go to South Haven, right? They had choices depending on where they lived. They could also go to South Haven, exactly, or Fenville. So what happened in 1963 was Douglas and Saugatuck schools agreed to unify. What ended up happening was all the elementary school students from Saugatuck came to the new Douglas Elementary, and now they had to build an addition addition to accommodate that. And all of the junior high and high school students from Douglas and Saugatuck went to Saugatuck High School on the hill. So everybody was kind of going back and forth. And it continued that way for a few years until 1974, when the Saugatuck School District decided that they really needed to build a brand new school building. And it would be the first one in like almost 100 years. It was a brand new building built on a brand new site. And so in 1974, that was the building that has since become Saugatuck Middle and High School. Yes?
Question, I think there was a burning of that high school you just showed in about 1950.
Yes, this was the addition that was built after the fire in 1950.
No,
There's
there's
not
another
there.
one.
All right.
There's another one.
Okay. So there's that fire. There was another fire in this building?
Yes.
Okay. So this building, after several fires, a number of fires, the old school was completely leveled, and the new school building, junior high and high school, was built on the site where the building is now, on Elizabeth Street. And so you see a picture of what it looked like on the second day of school at the bottom. And the caption, let me read this, it's actually interesting. It's the caption for the lower photo says, "Students leave the cool, carpeted confines of the new junior and senior high school, which opened last week. Last Thursday, as students got their first good look at the new surroundings, there was a spontaneous demonstration of appreciation for the new $1.3 million building." I don't know what that means, a spontaneous demonstration of appreciation, but apparently everybody was
Nathan, look at who wrote the article.
I see this is a Kit Lane article. I should say that Kit Lane has done a lot of documentation of schools throughout the decades, because I've found several articles and notes and books and things that have your name on them, so that's wonderful. Thank you. And of course, this is the building that we know today. There have been a few different additions and renovations to this building as well, but it is certainly the pride of this community, and a lot of students come school of choice to the middle school and high school because it offers a really wide variety of programming and opportunities that a lot of schools in a small town, a lot of students in a small town may not get. So now we're going to travel a little. I got 18 minutes to take you on a little journey to other schoolhouses in the area. Down the road a piece, Ganges Township. Ganges also had a union school when it was a bit more of a going concern. It was built in 1871, so a few years after the buildings here, but if you look at the architecture, looks kind of familiar, right? Looks a little bit like this building. A lot of big windows, bell tower up on top. This is a class photo that was dated about 1910, but to me the style of dress looks like it might be a little older than that. I don't know exactly. But they're out in front of the building. Again, it was always a popular photo op in front of the building. Where was it? It was near the church. There's a church in Ganges, right? It was next to it. I don't know which direction.
Other school was built in 1950.
Oh, really?
Now part of the church.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, because they demolished this building right before then, and they built a new building. You know, it's part of the church. Okay. All right. Interesting. So this is not a very good scan of not a very well developed photo, but I wanted to show it because, right, the horse. Can y'all see the horse there? And so there was no year on this class photo. The building looks pretty much the same, so I have to guess it might be turn of the century sometime. Yeah, so just because I thought it was a cool picture, I included it. This is a better one. Hey, Kit Lane, thanks for the negative. This is a really good photo of the building. A little bit later on, around 1920, you can see that they have added some awnings over the porches. Probably when the teacher needs to run out and yell at the kids in the rain, you know, or something like that. You know, there's a stairway from the second story that may have been there originally. It looks like there's electric wires here and a meter, so now they got electricity. And the one thing that I did was I cut out I blew up the sign that's on the front that says standard schools. And in sort of the lingo of school development, being a standard school meant something. It was a sign of accreditation and that they were meeting certain standards. So they wanted to proclaim that right on the front of the building there. So I thought that was interesting. This is a painting, actually. Where's Ken? This is a Wally Berg, I think. Yep. And of the Ganji School, there was no date on it. The building sort of looks a little bit worse for wear, right? The bell's still up there, but the little cupola on top of it's gone. The year on it here says 1951, but we know the building was demolished right around that time. So this might have been right at the sort of very end of the time. But I thought this was really interesting, so I wanted to include it. Has anybody ever been to the Peach Belt School before? Right? When I started, which is now almost 2 years ago, 2 weeks before I started, there was a field trip to this school, and I just missed it by a couple of weeks, so I'm really bummed about that. But this is, a beautiful example of what was a one-room schoolhouse. This is down on M89 at 63rd Street, so if you go down Blue Star, turn left, go towards Fenville, it'll be on your right-hand side. It's a beautiful little building right on the corner.
And it's open to the public, Dawn Stafford.
Yes, right. So Dawn Stafford owns it. She's a member here. So she has regular public hours. They have a great website with some quotes by Jim Schneeken talking about the history of the building. But yeah, there are public hours and you can go in and take a look at it. That building originally was built out of wood and it was faced in wood siding. The brick didn't come until about 1898. We'll talk about that in a second. But this image is dated 1889 of everyone standing in front of the building. Here's a class photo. There were a few notes that I found that said all grades were taught by one teacher, and from its beginning, the enrollment was only about 20 to 30 children total. The teacher organized the room into specific classes, teaching each class separately of specific age groups while the other students studied independently, which was pretty typical of one-room schoolhouse instruction through many decades. This is a class photo that does not have a date, although there's some nifty-looking bicycles in the front, but you can clearly see the brick design up behind the students, which lets you know that this is this school. Here's a more recent one, 1955, at the Peach Belt School. I counted there's about 24 kids in that picture. Looks like pretty little kids all the way up to at least middle school, maybe high school. Let me see, I have some notes here. Forgetting all my important notes. Oh, we're on to page 2 already. How about that? All right. Let's see. So in 1961, the Fenville School was annexed into the Fenville Schools group. But this schoolhouse continued to be used until 1968 for specific single grades. So maybe like 3rd grade would always be the Fenville School, something like that. In 1971, it was sold to become a church for migrant workers. And then in 1977, a man named Phil Van El and his family bought the building and started to restore it. Here's what it looked like in the late 1960s, so right around the time that it was going out of active school use. I think it was pretty worn. I mean, the brick was in good shape. It was a good exterior, but I think the building was pretty tired. Phil and his family did a restoration in the late 70s, early 80s. They rebuilt the cupola, they put a new roof on it, they did some other good renovation work. That's the picture in the upper left there. And then later it was purchased by Dawn Stafford, and she transformed it over a number of years into the Peach Belt Studio Gallery, which is what you can visit today. And then the other 2 photos there show some of the renovation work that was done, both interior and on the site. To really make it into a functional studio space, but very respective of this building's history and its architecture. There are not many brick one-room schoolhouses that look quite like that anymore, and especially because it's on such an important and visible location, I think it was important that they maintain its history. So that's what the school looks like today. Excuse me, right? 3 windows on the side, cupola in the front, typical sort of design. It's listed on the Michigan Register of Historic Sites. The build date was 1867, so it's also celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. This was later faced, like I said, in 1898 by the Veneklassen brick, typical from Zeeland, right, that you see around Holland and Zeeland area. So this is an example of that decorative style. We're going to go a little different direction. We're going to go down to the Glen School. If you can't read that sign, it says Ganges School District number 4, Glen School, 1854, Michigan's oldest continuing rural school. And I think this is a fascinating building because it is still a functioning school building today. Here's a photo from the 1940s. By that point, they had put a second, what had started as a one-room schoolhouse, they put a side addition on for a second classroom, so at this point it was a two-room schoolhouse. And this is what it looks like today. Like about 4 days ago when I went down there and took some photos of it. It is, you can clearly see the original one-room section, and they have been very cognizant with the additional classrooms that have been put on to sort of mirror the style and really have it balanced with the rest of the building. Of course, down the side, 3 windows, right? Cupola on top. There's still a bell in that cupola, and the students ring it every morning. Just like this one, with the rope, they ring the bell to start the day. This is really cool because Glen it's a little self-contained district, if you will. It's just the one building. It's school of choice. They have between 25 and 35 kids between grades K through 6 that come to this school, and they are very aware of this building's history. The little school board that manages it, the teachers that work there, and so it has beautiful polished wood floors. They had these desks specially made at some point in the style of what wooden desks would look like in the late 1800s. They also keep a tennis ball manufacturer in Korea. You can see all of them on the chair legs and the table legs. I was thinking, when I was planning this program several months ago, I should just wait till summer, that won't be full of students, it'll be easy to go in and take some photos, not thinking that then, of course, the classrooms are all deconstructed for the summer while they're doing work. So I apologize that it's not sort of laid out more in regular classroom fashion, but these desks, they're just gorgeous, it's wonderful. This is what one of the classrooms looks like. It has, wonderful wood trim around all the windows. You can see the wooden floors. That's looking towards the teacher's desk there. They have these wonderful historic light fixtures that they still use. They have modern fluorescence in the ceiling, but they also have these lower lights to sort of try to keep the spirit of the historic school. I should point out that's a whole row of computers, despite the fact that they're all covered. So this is a well-equipped little elementary school, even for modern 21st century technology and that sort of thing. This was an interesting story. I spoke with one of the school board members, and he said, you have to check out this one corner of our floor over here. He said, the floor is gorgeous, it's wonderful, except for this. And at one point in its history, this building was heated by little coal stoves in each classroom. And this was near the location of the stove in that class, and that was where a clinker popped right out and hit the floor and started to burn on the floor. And this is a scorch mark that's still there. Students walk by it every day. That's in one corner of one of the classrooms. So I just thought it's still a reminder that this has been a school for 100 years and more. There was an expansion done in 1982. They added a third classroom to the 2-classroom building at the time. They also took on a larger restoration. They rebuilt the cupola, they did some roof work, and this sort of shows where they added the new part, which is on the left in 1982, to the first edition, which was, I think, in the early 1900s. You can clearly see the line in the brick, but you can see how they mirror the architectural style, right? Windows look kind of similar design, and that sort of thing. So they've really been very cognizant of the history of this building and its architecture and tried to maintain that. So that's what it looks like today. It's a very cool little building to drive by. It's right on the Blue Star Highway, so you can certainly go and take a look at that. Last specific school we're going to look at here is Westview School, which is on 60th Street north of the Blue Star. So heading toward Holland, when you get to 60th, hang left, head up towards Holland, and you'll go by the Westview School. It's on the site of Westview Farms, which is a nursery facility, and Lee is here somewhere. Yes, hello, current owner of the building and the property. This is another interesting school. So Westview School was named because originally it faced west. And so this is what you see from the highway, from the Blue Star Highway side. And this wall here is the west-facing wall, and originally this was the front entrance of what was originally a 2-classroom school building. They had 2 classrooms. And then at a later time, when I get back to my notes, they added an addition with the current entrance, which now faces south. So the name continues to be Westview, but it hasn't actually faced west officially in many decades. This view might be kind of hard to see, but you can see right here clearly a line in the brick where the front entrance and the stairs used to be, and then they were filled in with windows and brick at a later time. Let me get back to my notes so I make sure I'm missing anything important. Originally, this was school district number 5 in Fillmore Township. There was a school on that site starting in 1866, and there was a note here that says originally they spent money to buy a clock, a bell, and library books. Total cost $35. The school term here was initially just 4 months because this was such an agricultural area. They needed the students in the fall for the harvest. Hard winters, right? So who knows what actually happened then, and then springtime. So the first school term year was only 4 months. Also, in the summer, they would hold the school term, and that was taught in Dutch. So we're getting closer to the holidays. So they did some English, and then they could do Dutch as well, which I thought was really interesting. The new school, this existing building, was built in 1875. Like I said, with 2 classrooms. And it wasn't very long before the new south-facing entry, which is what you see here, was added in 1883. Again, now it's got the bell tower. It had a little cloakroom on each side of the front door, which was pretty typical for 1 or 2 room construction. It's got a really cool bell tower, which I know Lee and his family have spent some time. They actually took it off the building once they bought the property and sort of reconstructed it. They replaced a lot of the wooden pieces that were really rotted. It's got a new roof. It's got a wonderful weather vane up there on the top, looking west at this moment. I don't know if you can see right here, when I was taking these pictures, right here is 747. And so I took a closer picture. I don't know if you can see that, but I was like, what is that? Oh man, that's a plane. That's really cool. So the things you see when you look up in the sky, right? So Lee talked to me a little bit about the history of the building, the cupola. It has a bell in it. This is not the original bell to this school. When they decommissioned the school in the 1960s, they took the bell down and it went with a school board member back to, I think, his home property. So then when they reconstructed the cupola and were ready to put it back on the roof, they found another bell, probably similar vintage, a little bit smaller, and so that's the one that's up there now. But it's very visible from the street, so it's cool to see it up there. Now, and I should say, I like this cupola because it has this really cool sunburst kind of style design, which Lee said they spent quite a bit of time kind of shimming in new wood to try to make that look as much as it could like the original, what would have been there. So this is the building. It's a fabulous little school building, and then of course they have the greenhouses behind, and I'm sure we'll find them at the Holland Farmers Market and everything. Lee also is one of the garden committee members who maintains the beautiful garden here behind this building, so that's some of his work. So I say all of this, and then I go back and say, well, actually, I didn't cover all of the schools. There are more schools that are out there, little one-room schoolhouses, and it's really interesting because, many one-room schoolhouses closed in the 1960s. It was the same as with this building. There were just, communities were growing, people were moving to villages and towns and cities. And the old schools just weren't sufficient. They weren't built for electricity and for plumbing, and they kind of made do, but a lot of times they really just needed new facilities. Especially as school became more specific, more specialized, right? Specific classes. Now you have chemistry, and now you have science, and now you have other things that require more than just an empty room with a teacher. But it's interesting because a lot of the sort of intermediate schools haven't survived, right? They burned down, they got demolished, and they built a bigger school on the same site, something like that. But a lot of the little one-room schoolhouses have made it because they can be easily transformed into a house, into a studio, into any number of other uses. And so they're still out there. So you'll be driving down the road and you'll say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that building has a cupola. Could have been a school once upon a time. So this was a map that I found that highlights some of the other schools kind of south and east of here that were there. Some of them are still there, not all of them. But it's really fascinating as you drive around Michigan and many other states just to find these sort of same look over and over again in what has become a one-room school. So I just also wanted to highlight that even though this is the old schoolhouse, even though there's a wonderful Douglas Elementary School only a few blocks from here, this building is still a place of learning. I mean, you're all here, you're probably learning one or two things along the way, hopefully. But, you know, I think this organization is really trying to position itself to be a better resource to this community, and I think that means more closely working with the schools. Every year in the spring, we have the first grade class from Douglas Elementary. They walk over here for a field trip one morning. You know, we talk about the history of this building, we let them go sit in the lifeboat, we talk about shipwreck history, they get to play old-time games in the garden. It's great. But when third grade comes along, which is Michigan History Year, we haven't really been talking with the third graders, and I think we have a really good opportunity to do that. And so we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of this year. We're really trying to take a look at how can we be a better resource to the community, how are our programs, what are our exhibits like, and I think this organization is ready to take that next step and move forward. You may be aware that we are having a major gala anniversary on September 23rd. It will be held on this property, in the garden, and inside this building, and I hope you will all consider attending. It will certainly be a fabulous event, and it will certainly celebrate the history of this building, but most importantly, I think it will just increase the awareness and the presence of this building in the community as we get ready to take that next step. So I think that's really important. The end. Of Michigan about 12 or 15 years ago found that they were getting a lot of documentation about historic school buildings all across the state. And so they published this book called An Honor and an Ornament, Public School Buildings in Michigan. And it's not a very big book, it's paperback, but it talks all about that land ordinance of 1785 and growth of schools. It talks about the styles of architecture, the way that floor plans were laid out, the way that we transformed from one-room schools to intermediate schools, why did we shift from junior high to middle school, sort of all these different things that were patterns in Michigan education, and architects and architecture and everything. So this book is actually available online as a PDF. We have a link to it on the old Schoolhouse page on the History Center website. We'll also post the link to the book on our Facebook page, and I'll have it in the next newsletter as well, so if you want to take a look at this. It's a fascinating, interesting read, a lot of pictures, and actually this building, the old Schoolhouse at Douglas, is highlighted as a pristine example of a mid-1800s Union schoolhouse building. So thank you all for being here. This has been a really interesting program. Continue to enjoy this wonderful air conditioning that you're experiencing tonight. If you haven't been upstairs to see our art gallery recently, I really recommend that you do that. There's new art from our collection and from the community hanging on the walls, showcasing local artists. It's right at the top of the stairs. Turn left. Ken Cutzel, the art collection manager, is up there to answer your questions, and I hope you'll check it out. And if you want to come back and see the old Schoolhouse exhibit, go to lunch. We'll reset the room, and then we'll be back to see the gym.
Not tonight.
Playground is now art. Remember where?
Oh yes, so the cool thing about this property, thank you for reminding me real quick, was that when we acquired it, the former schoolyard is basically what exists as the property today. And so where there used to be playground equipment and a fire slide that everyone liked to slide down toward the back of the building, now is a beautiful garden. And I try to announce this every week. Thank you for reminding me. If you haven't been through the garden recently, or if ever at all, please take a step out the back door and go walk around. It is gorgeous right now. A lot of hard work is being put into that garden. It's really worth a few minutes to look. So please do that. I think now I'm really done. Have a great
Walk right down Mount Baldy. Pick up the
This is my writing here. This is my writing here. Well, that's Russell Gates. I knew this much, but we were a year ahead of us. I knew everybody here pretty much. So this is my writing here. I had identified all these kids. I think I did that.
The difference is,
Larry Jones, Larry Phillips.
No, you know that's right.
Yeah, that's right. I remember identifying those. Here's my sister. Here's my sister right here. Susie Schultz. Nobody came up with a year for that one. I was surprised. Why was it there again? Here's Demi Dennis. His family. Is he the guy with the fish? Yes. The guy. His family had this big farm up on the hill. They donated all that land to the school. That's the new school is building.
also when the FGA was the National Guard, and from this area, all these guys served in the beginning of the Fisheries Society. And I got one note for you like this. If I came across a story in the 30s, this guy was sitting.
Howard, why don't you share out of your way here?
Oh, that's the northwest flank that went missing? Yes, well, there is, somebody, a lot of research, they're doing copies of other historical.
Are you in here someplace? What year? What year?
But usually we budget for a couple of so I think it's
40 something? There's some people here that they don't know what year it is.
But it happens right here, just off the coast, right? So
You don't think that one's you?
Explosion. So at that time, you had no radar. Right. So I was coming down here this at night, flying at night.
You think that's him?
I don't know.
Can you get this
I
out of
thought
your
you
way
thought it
here?
was
Excuse me.
before.
Okay. I'm in that time frame someplace. I'm right here.
Oh, that's you?
Oh, right next to the Catholic school.
1948.
St. Peter's. Yeah. And talking to the owners there and was telling them about their owners and who were walking around. So I had to come to
Press the appropriate button.
Oh, still going.